Chiefs and Ravens.
Oh. Yeah, I'm going Sunday.
Oh, are you? Yeah, that should be fun.
With Blackwood.
Oh, really? I saw him today at, he was at the 8 Mile Boulevard Association meeting.
Yeah.
Picked up season tickets this year.
Oh, really?
Sold all of them.
I was gonna say,
I could not.
I don't.
You, so all of them?
I was in the one.
Brutal, it was good money, wasn't it?
Bought 5, sold it done.
It's an easy decision, man. And then you get the comfort of sitting at home and watching.
My son had, they did,
Yeah, because you're going to get your first one.
volunteer at the vendor thing.
Jeff, you go ready?
Yeah.
Because the first one was like,
It's worth it.
Jim, Josh, you guys ready?
So hard to get tickets now. It's crazy.
Ed, you good? Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Tuckfield. I am the chairman of the Macomb Township Zoning Board of Appeals, and I'm calling this regularly scheduled meeting to order at 6:30 on September the 5th, 2024. If you could stand with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, that takes us on to item 3, which is roll call. Mr. DeBruin, could you call the roll?
Mr. Tuckfield.
Here.
Mr. DeCoster.
Here.
Mr. DeBruin is present. Mr. Mazzara.
Here.
And Ms. Fostich.
Here.
All right, very good. Next, we have the addressing of any conflicts of interest. At this time, I'm going to also ask Mr. DeBruin to call the roll. If any members have a conflict on any of the items this evening, please indicate by saying yes. If you have no conflict, please indicate by saying no. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Ms. Fostich.
No.
Mr. Mazzara.
No.
Mr. DeBruin has none. Mr. DeCoster.
No.
Mr. Tuckfield.
No. All right, that takes us on to item 5, which is the approval of tonight's agenda. As an informational piece, before we approve tonight's agenda, we have several items that we will be tabling this evening, specifically item 7A. That would be for the Ultimate Farms variance request, and item 8C, which is for the Tensner Park subdivision regarding a privacy fence. So just as a heads up for anyone in the audience, we will be entertaining the agenda as it stands, but those items will get tabled. So just in case you sit here and wait for an item that won't show up, I want to make sure I noted that now. All right, with that said, I will entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Mazzara, is there support?
Support.
Supported by Ms. Faustick. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. That motion passes, and tonight's agenda is adopted. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. That will be from our regularly scheduled meeting on August the 1st, 2024. Is there any motions on this item?
Motion to approve the previous meeting minutes.
Motion by Mr. Mazzara, is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. DeCoster. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. That motion passes, and the previous meeting minutes are approved. Takes us on to item 7, which is old business. Mr. Box, I know we're going to look to table this, but could you quickly summarize just that we're getting the request?
Sure. So this was an item that was actually on the last agenda. We went through it last time, but they had requested it to be tabled at that meeting so that they could speak with the building department, and we would have the building department available this evening. But they have reached out to us since then and let us know that they were unable to attend this evening and asked that this item be tabled until the October meeting.
Okay, very good. With that being said, I will entertain a motion from the board to postpone this item to our regularly scheduled meeting in October.
Motion to do that.
Motion by Mr. DeBruin, is there support?
I'll support.
Supported by Mr. Mazzara. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. That motion passes, and that item is postponed. Next item on our agenda is item 8A. This would be 2 variance requests, one from section 10.0323E13 and one from 10.323E27. This is for permanent parcel 0831226 007. Mr. Box, could you take us through this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. So as you mentioned, this is at the corner of 21 Mile and Garfield Roads. This is an existing facility, as you see on the screen behind you. The applicant intends to convert the site into a gas station with a convenience store. As a part of that, they need 2 variances. The first variance would be to allow paved maneuvering areas within the required front yard setback along 21 Mile, as you see highlighted there. Typically, the ordinance does not allow parking spaces or maneuvering lanes within any front yard setback. And the second variance being to allow an entrance or exit from Garfield Road to feature at a width of 29.5 feet. The ordinance requires this drive to be 30 feet wide. So our staff did look through this, assessing, had no objection. The building department requested that the variances, or mentioned that the variance did not create any building code issues. No comments from fire or public works. Engineering had a number of comments. I'm sure you saw these in your packet, and we do have Mr. Van Tiffelen here this evening if you have questions for him. But they mentioned that they failed to see a practical difficulty. The additional usable area to the south and to the east that would allow for some gas pumps and drive aisles, so they felt that there could be other ways to lay out the site. The building could be adjusted to maximize the use of the property. Reducing the setbacks affects the maneuvering and the driver's ability to adequately see pedestrians and other vehicles. And lastly, should the ZBA grant the variance, they request that the curb line at the entrance drive from 21 Mile Road still meet the 15-foot setback before transition into the reduced setback to the east. I guess a couple more here. So with regard to the Garfield Road driveway, engineering mentioned, again, they didn't identify a practical difficulty. The driveway is existing, but it was not originally shown on an approved site plan. It was constructed after the fact. The driveway does not meet the requirements that we would typically hold other developments to. Our planning staff did look at this. Again, it does not appear that there are any unique physical characteristics of the property that would typically render a practical difficulty. It is likely that the site may be designed differently to meet the standards. The township records show that a stamped approved set of drawings did exist from 2006 that did meet the front yard setbacks from both driveways, although it featured pumps along Garfield Road frontage rather than the 21 Mile that they're proposing this time around. A grant of the variance may provide a greater relief than on other property, and the applicant may provide additional information regarding the spirit of the ordinance. So recommendations regarding the 21 Mile setback, we would defer to the applicant, and they are here this evening to identify the practical difficulty. And it's clear that they're trying to salvage the existing building, which is understandable, but that doesn't necessarily constitute a practical difficulty. That would be up for the ZBA to determine. And allowing this variance may create safety concerns if the 15-foot setback before the transition as identified by engineering is not met at the 21 Mile entrance. With regards to the Garfield Road driveway, it appears that it was installed by the County Road Department in the 1990s. I believe it was part of Garfield Road being paved. It was a dirt road up until that point. And the deficient in width is probably a measurement error by the contractor who initially installed it. But we would defer to the ZBA regarding whether that would qualify it as a practical difficulty.
All right, thank you, Mr. Box. Mr. Van Tiffelen, did you have anything to add to that?
No, it was a very good summary.
Any questions from the board to Mr. Box or Mr. Van Tiffelen? Hearing none, and sir, if you're from the public, we'll have a chance for you to speak too. If you can just give us a minute, we'll get through the process. If the applicant is here, if they could come forward to this seat in the front, state your name and address for the record, and give any comments you might have. If you have other people with you, they're welcome to pull up other chairs as well, if you'd like, so that you're not having to stand there. I just ask that anyone who speak identifies their name and address before they proceed.
Yeah, my name is Ghassan Abdinour from GAV and Associates Architect. We're the architect in the project, and the address is 24001 Orchard Lake Road, Farmington, Michigan. And thank you for having us here in front of you. And we're excited about this project. We've been working with the owner that she's here next to me, the family, and we're talking about a project that the owners, owned this building for 22 years. They've been in this building for a long time. They kept the business going, and as the business changed, they wanted to go with it to make things better for them and for the neighborhood and for the township. What's happening right now is just a lot of maybe gas stations are opening and they're having liquor stores and involved part of the gas station. And what's going with this building, I mean, people, they start losing money. So the idea is we've always been thinking to add a gas station to it. People like to come to one-stop shop and make things working. And the zoning of this property kind of allows us to do that. And that's why we're here. We're working with you. We want to make sure that the township is happy with what we're doing and meet the requirements and meet the codes. What we're doing here, we're asking for these two variances for the landscaping and the front from 21 Mile Road. Now, 20 Mile Road is a busier road, and as we know, I mean, the pumps is better to be on 21 Mile Road and working because the front of the building is facing 20 Mile Road. And sometimes it's hard to put the pumps on the other side because all the stores and all the building is facing 20 Mile Road. And by putting the pumps over there, it doesn't matter if we do it on the other side, it's 80 feet on either side, so we're always gonna require that setback for the landscaping in front. And we do have 28 feet of existing right-of-way landscaping is already in front of us. And by adding the 5 feet sidewalk and the 4 feet, we're over 35 feet. So we think we have enough buffer, and that's why we're asking for that variance from you. And if people come from the entrance, you still have enough space for 2 cars to stand before they turn. So, and the building itself, we couldn't really move it because of the type of building and the trusses. If we want to cut the building and move it back, that means we have to demolish the building. And demolishing the building, I mean, we're not supposed to talk about economical issues, but it does create a big issue for the family that they've been there for 22 years. And also the bank will be hardship that they might not get enough money to do that. But during the process, the owners are willing to facelift the whole building. So actually, we're taking all the brick out. We're making the building look like new. We're having it a new facelift, a new materials. So it's not going to look like an existing building. We're going to make it look higher with the parapets and give it some nice character and make sure the township is happy with that and meet all the requirements of the planning commission and the building and the civil, and make you happy in the process. So the variances we're asking is for that landscape area that we think we have enough buffer from 21 Mile. The other request is the size of the entrances. The size of the entrances, we're missing like maybe 1 feet something on either one, and they were built long time ago. We think we love to keep them because that creates a lot of extra cost for us, but something we can work together on this part. But moving the building is a very tough situation because that means you're gonna demolish the whole project. You're adding another $1.5 million project to the project, and the bank won't even give the money for this, and that will create a hardship for the family that's been there for 22 years. So that's why we're here in front of you. We're asking that variance, that we're trying to first make the township happy and meet safety requirements, and at the same time keep the family that they own that business for 22 years comfortable and keep another 30 years working in the township. And we're willing to work with you either way you ask us to. We're here to ask your opinion, and if any changes you require us to do beside that variance, we're here to listen and to work with the committee. So. And I don't know if the owners like to say anything.
I'm Janan Keikos. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Janan Keikos, and this is my son, my oldest son, Chris Keikos. We've been there for 22 years. This will help us tremendously if we turn it into a gas station, because there's no gas station existing in the location that we are. So if I don't do this, somebody else is going to do it. So we've been waiting for that road to open up. We've been there, like I said, 22 years. Finally, thank God, Garfield went through. It's really nice to have that road open up because more traffic flow. And staying on 21 Mile, the traffic flow is best on 21 Mile, and the way the building is situated, the width, it's going to be really nice with the pumps on 21.
I appreciate, Ms. Keikos, if you could just give us your address at the end of that.
I'm sorry, 16530, 21 Mile Road, Macomb, 48044.
Okay, very
And
good.
also, we have the civil engineer from Green Tech Engineering, Jesse. Would like to say something.
Hey, thank you. Jesse Parkinson, Green Tech Engineering, 51147 West Pontiac Trail in Wixom. Just wanted to add, I mean, these guys did a good job. Just wanted to add one thing for clarity here. There's 80 feet of distance from the north side of the building to the right-of-way of 21 Mile Road. There's also 80 feet of existing distance between the east side of the building to Garfield, the Garfield right-of-way. So whether we turn the canopy on the Garfield side or keep the canopy where we show it today, with the required drive aisles of 24 feet on either side of the canopy and a 20-foot wide canopy, that distance comes out to 68 feet. You're left with only 12 feet of extra distance. Now, putting a sidewalk in front of the building on the north side of the building or a sidewalk on the east side of the building, that's where we come up with our resultant landscape requirement in order to keep the existing building where it's at. That's A. B is just wanted for clarity for everybody to understand that this plan that we're looking at, I don't think is the latest and greatest submittal that we submitted, I think a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. The latest submittal has that additional island added to the east side of the 21 Mile approach. It allows for traffic that's coming in off of 21 Mile to go beyond that first driveway and have to enter into the south side of the canopy. So,
Underground.
yeah, and also you see some gas tanks, underground tanks in the Garfield Road required landscape buffer. Those have been removed and put into the drive aisle there. So just want to make sure that we're talking about that when we're looking at this plan, we understand that we've made adjustments to it based on the engineer's request.
All right, very good. And just to confirm, Mr. Box, I think we had some brief discussion prior to the planning commission meeting. This was one that was the drawing that got submitted just prior to the Labor Day weekend, I believe.
That's correct. It was submitted last Thursday, and we didn't have enough time to review it before Planning Commission, which is why it got tabled at the Planning Commission level. A, we didn't have time to review it, and B, it's dependent on these variances anyways, so we felt it was best to table it at that point. But he is correct. This drawing is the one from prior to that. We didn't want to use those updated ones because we still haven't finished our reviews on those.
Okay. All right, very good. Sorry, I don't know if you were done.
No, that's great. I appreciate just recognizing that we understand from a safety standpoint the reason for the 21 Mile entrance not being able to turn directly into a 24-foot drive aisle is a safety concern because cars coming off of 21 Mile into the site that turn directly in front of the canopy may cause some sort of slowdown from a vehicle or two that are stacked behind them. So,
Okay.
thank you.
No problem. Any other comments from the petitioner? Any questions from the board to the petitioner? Hearing none, then at this point, without objection, I would open it to public comment. So we're going to do public comment here in just a moment. I'll ask for you to come up to the podium over here. You'll have up to 4 minutes to ask questions. We generally write them down or do some version of writing down. We don't answer them during public comment. When you're done, we'll aggregate all of them and then we'll answer. So if you get up and ask a question, I know this gentleman here has some, we won't answer right away. We're not going to be trying to be rude. We just want to make sure that we follow our process. So if you have anything, go ahead and come up to the podium and state your name and address and give any
Good
questions.
afternoon. My name is Martin Shelton. I stay at 47020 Glody Road off of 21 Mile in Garfield. I'm a retired military person, served 30 years in this country. So first of all, I don't think the gas station is really necessary. We already have too many gas stations. We got one on 21 in Hayes and 23 in Hayes. We got one on 23 and Romeo Plank. And also it's a very busy section. especially during the rush hour in the morning and the rush hour in the afternoon. I've been there for 12 years when I built my house in 2011, and I ain't seen a lot of accidents because it's very busy. There's 4 directions and cars. And so adding that gas station would cause extremely traffic accidents and safety hazard. So I really do not recommend it having another gas station in that location. That's what I'm here for. I am the resident of that close area. I'm close to 21 Mile, the only house here. That's the reason why they sent me a letter.
Appreciate your comments, sir. Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Go ahead and come up to the podium. I think there's 2 people. We'll go ahead and come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Denise DiTomaso. I'm at 46984 McKenna. We are on the southwest corner, Lakeside Meadows subdivision, so we are right across the creek from One Step. Great people, but the area is ridiculous when it comes to traffic. We cannot pull out of our sub. I've been there 34 years. We can barely, for I would say the last 4 years, pull out of our sub as it is. Now that Garfield's open, you literally cannot turn left out of our subdivision. Turning right out of our subdivision, you wait 10, 15 minutes. If there's a gas station put in there, it's going to up the traffic. There's no need for it, I don't believe. There's one, like he said, at 21 in Hayes, 22 in Hayes, 23 in Hayes, 23 in Romeo Plank. I just think it's going to be a dangerous situation. We've had the same comments back in 2006 when this was brought up. I just don't feel it's a good idea. Turning left from, heading west into there, there's constant near misses with accidents. They're turning left onto Garfield, turning right onto Garfield. Any way you go in that whole area is absolutely insane. The roads are not handling the traffic for the amount of subs that we have now that Garfield's open. You literally cannot pull out of our sub. Our neighbors, there's like 6 of us in a row that are directly behind the store. One of them's handicapped, he can't make it, but he was gonna send in a letter. We all have the same issues. We have teenagers pulling out, we have old people pulling out. You literally cannot, I mean, it'd be great if you guys could come even during the day, not during rush hour traffic. You cannot pull out of our sub turning left. So I don't think it's a great idea to have a gas station here. I know a lot of the people in our sub don't think it's a great idea to have a gas station here. I just think, and then adding these variances in, having all this extra traffic for the gas station is gonna cause more problems, more accidents for both subs on both sides of 21 Mile. So that's my comment.
If you could, sir, there is one other gentleman who wanted to speak. Generally, we keep it to 1 time, but when we're done with everybody, I'll give you a chance again.
Hello, Kevin King, 46978 McKenna. My house the backyard is right by, my yard is, I have some on the other side of that drain. And the gas station, like we were talking with the traffic, is there gonna be light pollution, noise on the weekends? We already have a ton of noise from the bar on the weekends. I mean, how is this gonna impact that? Litter, and then there's a drain right there. Is that safe to have gas tanks next to a county drain? I just don't see this as a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Very important for Crowder. They also, on 22, they're building more houses there too, so there can be more resident coming in that same location, to be more and more traffic. So if they have more houses built on 22 in Garfield and steady building, so you have to take that in mind too, because we get more population in that area now, new home building.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none and without objection, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board. Mr. Box, I'm not sure if we had any variance-related questions, but I did want to speak unless you had anything you wanted to say. There was probably just a comment I was going to make. Do you have anything on that?
No, I mean, I didn't hear any questions. It was all just concerns of traffic. This property is zoned correctly to allow a gas station. And I guess what I would say with regards to traffic, you know, I would pose the question to everybody here, when was the last time you left your house just to go get gas and then go back home? Very few people do that. Most traffic into a gas station are trips already on the roadway. They don't typically increase traffic. They may increase some turning movements, but they don't typically increase traffic. They're what's known as pass-by trips, that you're already on the roadway, you decide, I need gas, I pull in, I get gas, I get back on the roadway.
Very good. And just a little bit of a process comment that I want to make. So there's a couple of different paths developments take. Tonight, we're here for a variance request. Variance request is when someone wants to do something that cannot be allowed with the strict interpretation of the zoning ordinance. And so the petitioner is here tonight with two of those. The other part of this process, and we had a meeting for this on Tuesday, it was postponed as we mentioned earlier, is the site plan approval. The site plan approval takes the drawings and it looks at the underlying zoning and it looks to see if the design of the site meets the restrictions, the other restrictions. It generally is a little bit more broad in nature of looking at the whole site, whereas tonight we are specifically looking at two specific items, specifically the width of the driveway entrances and how close the parking lot on the north side of the property can be to the road. So I think all of the comments were well taken. Some of them may still be things that the Planning Commission cannot do anything, but I would encourage you just to understand that there are different stages. And while we listen to the comments, most of them tonight, from what I'm hearing, are not going to be things that we can directly affect here tonight. So like the comments on traffic and the comments on not wanting a gas station, well heard and understood. For us, though, we're going to be specifically looking at, is there something with the land that justifies the change to those two specific elements that they're looking for? So I just want to make sure you understand when we don't respond to things, that's why, because we're going to be looking specifically at the comments that pertain specifically to what we're doing tonight. But I also want you to know there are other steps of the process that you are welcome to come, you are welcome to give comments on. Just want to make sure you understand the purpose of tonight's meeting. So with that, I'm going to bring it back to the board for any comments, questions, or motions.
I just have one question. With regards to the variance on the width of the drive approach, the requirement is 30 foot back curb to back curb, or just edge of concrete to edge concrete?
I believe it's back of curb to back of curb.
And currently, what is it currently back curb to back curb?
28.5.
I think it's 28.6. I think
Okay.
the slide said 29.6, but I think it's actually 28.6.
Okay, that's all. Okay.
29.6 back of
29.6,
curb to
okay.
back of curb, 28.6 face of curb to
Face,
face
okay.
of curb.
There you go.
So we're 4/10, which is about 5 inches short.
I also just want to verify, Mr. Carey, are you picking us up? I have been having a hard time sometimes in the microphone, just not sure if it's my angle. Okay. I did have a question for Mr. Box and possibly a legal counsel. So I believe that these driveways are existing at this width, and they're not being modified. The use might be modified and the pavement might be modified, but the drives are not. Can you help us understand the difference between a non-conforming thing that would stay, I'm not sure if it would be a non-conforming use, but something that's non-conforming that is allowed to stay versus this where they're having to request a variance for?
Sure. So, for example, a shed, you may have built a shed years ago before there was a requirement that's 3 feet off your property line. Now the shed is required to be 5 feet off your property line. You don't have to tear the shed down, but it would be considered a legal non-conforming structure. If at some point you did tear it down, you could not rebuild it in the same place. You'd have to then meet the ordinance. So that's why they're not seeking a variance for the driveway along 21 Mile, because that would still be considered a legal non-conforming. The one on Garfield, the one that's circled there, that current driveway, I don't know if I have an aerial in any of these images. as you see there, it doesn't go to anything yet. It's not a driveway that's in use. It's not part of any approved site plan. That's why it's not considered a legal nonconforming. It was something that was installed by the road department 30 years ago, and it's not a functioning driveway.
So basically the distinction is that they have not hooked up to it.
Correct.
To our legal counsel, is there anything that you would add to that, or any comments you'd have?
Yeah, I would add that to be a legal nonconformity, the nonconformity must exist before the ordinance is put in place. So if that driveway was installed prior to the ordinance that required the 30-foot sideway, then it could be considered a legal nonconforming use. So the inquiry that you're getting into is actually the time that that driveway was installed.
Relative to the ordinance.
Exactly.
Understood. And Mr. Box, do we know that when that width would have been, was that width in place? Maybe Mr. Van Tiffelen would know this. When we had it at 30 feet?
I do not know off the top of my head, no.
It's been that way since,
Say,
1999
Jim,
when I started working with the
You've
township.
got to be close to 30 years if you're not.
At least 25.
Okay. And just to confirm, Mr. Box, this was installed by the County Road Commission, is that accurate?
Correct. At the time, it was the road commission, yes. Now the road department.
Okay. The only comment I would have is that when the County Road Commission installs something and it's been there, I'm not sure where all the lines come down, but that one seems like it would be hard to force someone to tear something out that the county put in incorrectly, but that would be only my comment. Any other comments, questions, or motions?
If there is none, I'll make a motion. Sorry. I would make a motion to approve the variance under section 10.0323E13, and that's a request from a 30-foot wide drive approach to a 29.6 foot, and as a practical difficulty, the fact that the County Road Commission had installed it, and we're assuming that was a math error.
Is there support on the motion?
I'll support.
Supported by Mr. Mazzara. Brief discussion on this. Jim, I think you had put in something specifically you wanted us to state if we had a motion with regards to this. I believe they addressed it on the site plan, but could you remind us of that?
That's the other variance.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
it
variance
is the
regarding
other.
the setback.
Yes,
Yes.
okay, thank you. All right, motion by Mr. DeCoster, support by Mr. Mazzara. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Ms. Fostage.
Approve.
Mr. DeBruin, I am a no. Mr. Mazzara.
Yes.
Mr. Coster is yes. Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
I
Yes,
should ask you.
yes,
anyway.
yes.
Okay, that's 4-1. Passes.
All right, that motion passes 4-1. Is there any motions with regards to the other request?
I will also make a motion regarding this, and the motion will be to deny variance under section 10.0323E27, and that's to request a 15-foot setback to a 4-foot setback, citing no practical difficulty found.
Motion by Mr. DeCoster, is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. DeBruin. Any discussion? Mr. Van Tiffelen's comments were with regards to if this was approved, so if this motion fails, we'll go back to it if there's another issue. But with that said, Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
Mr. DeCoster.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzara.
Yes.
Mr. DeBruin is a yes. Ms. Fostage.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 5-0. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us on to item 8B, which is a request, pardon me, not 8B. Is it 8B?
Yes.
8B is next. Yes, 8B, which is a request to vary from section 10.011 EF2 and section 10.0356 for permanent parcel 08081530001. Mr. Box, could you take us through this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. So this is in the Huntington Woods subdivision, south of 25 Mile Road, west of Romeo Plank. As you see in the image behind you, there's an existing patio. They are seeking it, as the slide says, one variance, but it's actually two, to allow both the brick paver patio to be expanded as well as to allow a pergola in the rear yard setback up to 12 feet. The ordinance requires that both the patio and pergola be at least 20 feet from the rear property line. So as you see here, the pergola feature a 12-foot rear yard setback is what they're asking for, and the patio a 13.5-foot rear yard setback. So as you see, the area in yellow is what would be required, and you can kind of see shaded. I guess if you can see my cursor here, the existing patio is right at what would normally be allowed. They're at, in the blue is what they're looking to expand it to. We did want to note that after the permit was applied for and denied by the township, the patio was actually already constructed. So this expanded patio does exist, and obviously they're here for a variance, so it does not meet the ordinance. Staff looked at this, assessing had no objection. Building noted that the variances did not create any building code issues. Fire and Public Works had no comment. Melissa noted that it does not appear that there are any unique physical characteristics of the property that render conformance with the ordinance unnecessarily burdensome, and it does appear that a grant of the variance requested would provide the applicant with greater relief than other property owners. The applicant may provide additional information regarding whether the spirit of the ordinance will be observed and public safety and welfare secured. So with that being said, staff cannot really support this as it does not meet the ordinance, and we did not see any clear evidence of a practical difficulty.
All right, thank you, Mr. Box. Any questions for Mr. Box from the board? Hearing none, is the applicant in the audience this evening? Sir, if you could, come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and give any comments you may have. And sir, you're welcome to pull up a chair as well.
Mark Aaron, 54367 Amber Drive, Macomb, 48042.
Any comments this evening, sir?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did bring the patio out, and I do want to put a pergola up. I already checked. It is under the 12 feet. It's 10 feet high. That's pretty much, like you said, we went through all the planning. 5 different divisions didn't have a problem with it, or they didn't see anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I constructed the patio, so.
And if you could, sir, just for us, if you could state your name and address, please.
Noah McNulty, 67534 Rachel Lane, Washington, Michigan.
Thank you, sir.
A couple of comments I just wanted to bring up. We constructed the patio out there. One thing I wanted to note, as shown on there, and what Public Works commented, is there's a 12-foot private easement in the rear of the yard. We are not intruding on that easement itself. So from the works of Public Works, that they didn't see a problem with that. I also wanted to state several other patios in the subdivision, whether they were permitted or not, are within the 20-foot setback requirement, as submitted on an exhibit that I provided during the submittal, showing 3 subject properties, but there are more than that. Third thing I wanted to note is that whether this is a patio and it's not a pool, but in the ordinance for Macomb, if you have a pool, you only have to be set back 7 foot off the rear property line. So we don't have a pool, so I know we're not subject to that requirement. Our specific requirement is 20 foot, but with our intrusion of 6.5 feet, we're not really changing the aesthetics or characteristics of the surrounding subdivision.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any questions? I should ask, do you have any more comments before we go into questions? Okay. Any questions from the board for the petitioner? Hearing none, without objection, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Sir, if you can come forward to the mic, and I know I mentioned it last time, but we do have a 4-minute time limit. Just state your name and address for the record, and then give any comments you might have.
Yeah, my name is, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Borshak. I live at 54294 Ashley Lauren Drive, Macomb, Michigan, 48042. I have a prepared statement I'd like to read within the 4-minute limit. Thank you.
Very good. And I won't start your timer yet because I'm taking it, but I believe we also have it here, just so you know, it was printed.
Sure, I have copies for you also with some additional photos that we neglected to send via email this afternoon.
All right,
If you'd
very-
like to, I can approach and show you those. I've got one for each of you.
If you'd like, go ahead and read your statement, and then when you're done.
Great,
you can
thank you. Okay.
give them.
As a direct neighbor to 54367 Amber Drive, I am here to inform the Planning Department that I oppose the variance request proposed by Mr. Garon. While I understand the Planning Department has vast discretion in granting variances, I believe that this particular variance should be denied as it presents multitude of concerns for both the Planning Department, for future enforcement purposes, as well as direct concerns regarding my ability to continue appropriate quiet enjoyment of my property. First, this variance is not a nominal request. As written, Mr. Garon is asking for over 40% reduction in the current allowable setback, from 20 feet to 12 feet, for the construction of a patio and pergola. Setback requirements are a necessity for many reasons, from including ensuring adequate space between neighbors, uniformity of the neighborhood design, and aesthetics. For even more importantly, however, the setbacks are in place to ensure safety, access to utilities, and for proper drainage. The current patio is already constructed, raises many concerns on all of these issues. Most significantly, it has changed the grade and elevation of the ground, which will likely cause considerable drainage concerns from my backyard. No regard has been taken to consider how water will divert or drain due to this construction. Furthermore, as already constructed, the step off of the patio has encroached even further on the requested variance. The step is 11 feet from the property line, which is also over the 12-foot permanent utility drainage easement that runs across the back of Mr. Garon's property. Additionally, the height of the pergola will significantly impede the view from Olivia Drive northward through all of the neighboring backyards, which represents a community safety concern for first responders, law enforcement, and the fire department when responding to issues within the neighborhood. These are exact reasons why setbacks are in place and why enforcement of these setbacks is necessary. Next, Mr. Garon has not offered any type of extenuating circumstances regarding the necessity of the variance. There is no need for the variance for handicap accessibility purposes, nor any type of other extenuating need. If that were the case, I would be more open-minded to the request. Rather, this variance request is only for Mr. Garon's personal enjoyment. Lastly, as you know, from the record, this variance comes retroactively in the form of asking for forgiveness rather than permission. As construction has already begun and completed on the patio itself. Not only had Mr. Garon begun construction prior to getting the permit, he continued construction
Just so you know, you have 30 seconds.
after a stop work order had been issued by the county. While he did not request a variance, construction continued prior to the planning department had made any decision on the variance requests and after the stop work order was in place. Mr. Garon has shown disregard to the authority of the planning department by only asking for a permit and subsequent variance after the unauthorized construction was reported to code enforcement.
Sir, you have hit 4 minutes,
Okay.
so I'm going to stop you, but just so you know, we do have the rest of it here in front of us.
Okay.
And you are welcome to bring up any other pictures and drop them off.
Right, will you have it all there? Would you like to see the addition with the photos?
You have some pictures, actually, yeah, if you
No,
can.
you came out earlier, but I have some others from my view.
If you could just bring them up here, mind the step here, don't want you to trip on it, and just go ahead and leave them with Mr. DeCoster, and he can pass them along. I was watching. I got to make sure I keep it fair.
Thanks. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on this request? Hearing none without objection.
You got one.
There is one.
Ah, thank you, sir. I did not see you. Go ahead. Serves me right for looking down at the paperwork instead of out while I was saying it.
Good evening. My name's Michael Yancey. I live at 54393 Amber Drive, directly next door to Mr. Guerin. I've lived there 9 years. Our backyards, in the afternoon, there is absolutely no shade whatsoever. I have to keep my blinds closed, windows closed from May to October because that sun just beats on the back of our house, and it costs more money keeping the air conditioning up and everything. I had a pool put in the year after I had bought my house to help keep cool. The subdivision, I was told when we bought our house was built, our house was built in 96. The people we bought the house from were an older couple. The subdivision was typically older people. Now, a lot of younger families are starting to move in, starting to bring the little kids back in. Now we're starting to have kids riding their bikes up and down the streets and stuff like that. There's just no shade back there. I haven't seen any change to the landscaping, meaning the grass, soil, at all. From living next door to them, seeing what they did, the patio came out and it went just like this. Landscaping, dirt wasn't brought in to lift it up, to make the rain go down further into the neighbors' backyards or anything like that. Typically, it's not really a quiet area. Everybody around there has dogs, and they're always barking. It can get louder from animals and stuff like that as well. But hearing, people, the quiet, the neighbors behind me, 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 o'clock, you hear them out there drinking, music going. It is what it is. The houses are built practically right on top of each other. So if you wanted more privacy or quiet or whatever, maybe move out to the country or something. But I put my house up for sale 2 days ago. So I'm just done. So I just came to support my neighbor, trying to get some shade in the backyard so he can go outside of his home and enjoy his property, which he's never able to do. His daughters come over, and if the sun's out and it's hot and sunny, they might go outside in the back, but typically you don't see him. He's inside the house. It's too hot out there. Doesn't cause any problems. You don't hear anything from him. So it'd be nice to see him out in the backyard enjoying his property. So that's it. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Make sure I don't miss anybody this time. I don't think there's anybody left, so without objection, I will close public comment. And thank you, Melissa. I think you really want to caught my eye. Didn't shut things down there. Bring it back to the board for any questions or comments.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. DeBruin.
I don't understand the separation here, the two different parts of this variance.
There's one for the step because the
Oh,
step.
okay, one's for the step and one's for the patio itself?
One is for the patio and one is for the pergola.
Oh, okay.
Both are required to be 20 feet off the rear property
Okay,
line.
now I understand.
I got you.
And I would assume that the pergola is the second one that is a greater distance from the back, or the first,
I believe that's correct.
we should confirm that.
Yeah, because it's 14 feet away from the setback instead of 12.
Yes.
I understand
Okay,
now.
I was just making sure it wasn't projecting 14 feet in, which would then imply that the other one was the pergola, not the first one. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you bring that photo back up that shows the proposed retaining wall, sir?
The proposed retaining wall?
Yeah, the one that you had up there, correct. I just want to say, since I built it on there, we did not change any of the grade that was there. Basically what it was, right, we extended out the patio an additional 6 foot. We built a retaining wall that supports that, 2 block high. It's buried in the ground, built a code, and then, I mean, it's backfilled behind it with new pavers on top. There was no additional soil built or brought in to create more drainage or do anything to that matter. So from where the edge of the patio is shown on there to the fence line, there should be no change of grade in that area. I just wanted to make that clear.
All right, I appreciate it. One comment I just wanted to make sure, we have the picture up here. I've closed public comment, but I do appreciate it. It's not uncommon for us to have projects that have been built prior to the permit being pulled. Sometimes that can have a negative connotation, and maybe that will cause issues elsewhere. I'm not speaking to the plus or the minus to that. I think it is worth noting that it exists currently. But just for clarity, our job, and the board knows this, our job is to assess whether there is a practical difficulty. A practical difficulty is something about the land that makes it difficult to abide by the ordinance, something that's generally unusual to that parcel. And that would exist whether the structure is built or not built, because we're looking at the parcel, we're looking at the property to see if something's there. So for the positive and the negative, I suppose from the petitioner's point of view, we don't look at it in a critical way. But we also, and this comes into place more in other cases, when we deny something and something has to be removed, we do not take into account the cost of removing it. We look at it as if it's not there for the purposes of the practical difficulty. So I want to make sure that that is clear, that this board's job is not to penalize based on whether there's a permit or not. It is information, and it's good information to have, but I want to make sure that's clear. The second to the petitioner, I don't always say this. Typically, we have engineers. Engineers know what the standards are, but you've seen one item already tonight. Our job is to determine if there is a practical difficulty. I will tell you, as it stands so far, I have not seen a practical difficulty. That does not speak to whether the patio was a nice patio or not, or how it might affect the neighbor, but I'm looking at it from that perspective. I have not seen it yet, so I just want to make sure I ask, is there something here that you have not mentioned that you believe is a practical difficulty with regards to something unusual about the parcel that makes this depth something that you have to do in order to be able to develop to it? So just want to give you the opportunity. I know you're not doing this all the time. You've kind of heard a little bit this morning or this evening. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, the only reason why, obviously, that I did bring the patio out was to put our pergola up. And like Mike said, I mean, there is no shade back there, and obviously that's why I wanted to build that there. I didn't have enough space for it, and I didn't want to put it up against the house, so I wanted to bring it out maybe a foot, but that's the only reason why I did bring the paver out, is to put that on there. Okay. And as far as not abiding by the rules, I did talk to the inspector. I've been calling him, I've been talking to him, and yes, we did start the project, and he's at the point where he's like, well, you either finish the project and wait for the variance board. So it's not like I was.
Sir, and I understand that. That was what I was making. My point is that our job is not to sit here and say you should have finished or you shouldn't have finished. That's not our responsibility. I wanted to make sure that was clear. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
I understand, though.
I would say another thing for him. I am a civil engineer by trade, so I do this a lot for residential development. Never really a specific residential, but on his issue, right, with the patio already built, I mean, just the lot configuration itself, he's dealing with basically a double front setback being on a corner lot. So the room to construct, I guess, within the setback envelope on a corner lot is smaller than on a typical rectangular lot. So I guess the reason for the extension of the patio would be for his enjoyment, for his use, but I guess really just to utilize all the space available.
So your comment is with regards to to less southerly availability to build that because of a larger setback on the corner?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I appreciate it. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Maybe just as a follow-up to that, Mr. Box, if you can give us the side front setback, is that what it's called?
So standard lots are 70 feet wide by 120 feet deep. The front yard does have a larger setback requirement than a side yard, and this would have 2 front yards. However, we require corner lots, this one included, to be 90 feet wide to make up for that distance. So this lot is 90 feet wide, so the usable backyard area is the same as a standard 70 by 120.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain motions. We have 2 items here, so I think we should have them separated. And I believe that the first is with regards, Mr. Box, correct us if we're wrong. The first is with regards to the patio, and the second is with regards to the pergola.
Correct.
Okay.
I hate to be that guy, but I'd like to make a motion on 8B1, variance to section 10.011 EF2. I make a motion to deny that based on the clear lack of a practical difficulty.
And I will support that. All right, motion by Mr. DeBruin, supported by myself. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeCoster.
Yes.
Hold on here, I lost my. Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Mazzara.
Yes.
And Ms. Fostich.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes 5-0. Any other motions? I'll make the motion on the second one. That will be with regards to section 10.0356. My motion would be to deny the request based on a lack of practical difficulty, based on the evidence that we've heard this evening.
Support.
Supported by Mr. DeCoster. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Ms. Fostich.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzara.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. DeCoster.
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes. All right, that passed 5-0. Appreciate you gentlemen coming in this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us on to item 8C. I believe this one we also are going to be looking to table. Mr. Box, could you please confirm that for us?
Yes, the applicant is requesting a variance for a higher privacy fence than what would typically be allowed. That being said, they did reach out and ask that this item be tabled. I believe they had some back-to-school things, meet the teacher for their children, and they could not attend this evening, so they asked to be tabled to the next regular scheduled meeting.
All right, very good. Is there a motion to postpone this to our next regularly scheduled meeting?
I will make a motion to postpone and also note that I am glad to miss curriculum night.
We're glad to have you. Motion by Mr. DeBruin, is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Mr. Mazzara. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. That motion carries, and that item is postponed to our next regularly scheduled meeting. All right, the next item on our agenda is item 8D, which is a variance from the, actually it is a sign exception, not a variance, I should say, which points to section 10.20-61A. This would be for permanent parcel 0828101002. Mr. Box, please take us through this.
As you mentioned, this is for a sign exception, which I'll go through. It's slightly different than a variance, as you guys well know. And the location is the Waldenberg Bar, which, if I have to tell you where that's at, you've been living under a rock, because it's been there for a long time. They are seeking a sign exception for 2 32.6 square foot wall signs at their business. As you see in the image in the lower left corner, basically the exact same sign already exists, but it's going to be removed as part of the widening of Romeo Plank, and so they're seeking to put those onto the side of the building rather than be on the pole out front. So again, sign exceptions are different than the typical variance. You do not have to identify a practical difficulty or hardship. The ZBA should consider a different set of standards, which I'll go through in a second. And then in your motion granting or denying the exception, you shall state the specific grounds for the decision. Conditions may be attached as deemed reasonable. So those exception standards would be obstructions, visibility, site feature scale, aesthetics, minimal, and intent. I think all of you are aware of these, as we've had a number of sign exceptions in the past year. But essentially, are they still meeting the intent of the ordinance? Is there a need for this because of obstructions or visibility or specific site features? Which I would say yes in this case, because of the road widening. They're proposing to essentially move those signs to the side of the building. And that will allow them the same visibility that they already have or close to it as much as possible without having to have such a small sign, which is because the size of the sign would be based on the frontage of the building, which, as you know, that's a very narrow building, so there's not much of a frontage, so it's a pretty small sign. Staff looked at this, assessing had no objection. Buildings noted it did not create any building code issues, no objections from engineering. The fire department just identified the IFC 2015. No objections or comments from Public Works. Melissa had a few things here. A letter from the applicant indicates that the existing sign must be removed due to the conversion of the intersection into a roundabout, which I already mentioned. Signs that exceed the allowable square footage, which is only 6.4 square feet because of the small size of the frontage, would be more appropriate in scale for the building itself. So the requested square footage will not adversely impact the character or appearance of the building because it's really the same sign that already exists there. The intent of the signs and sign regulation ordinance is to allow visibility for the business while minimizing harmful effects to public health, safety, and welfare. I think that upholds that. So staff would be in support of this request. And again, this property is going to be impacted by the expansion of Romeo Plank Road. And staff would view that as a practical difficulty. Although one doesn't have to be identified here, we would view that as a practical difficulty.
All right, any questions from the board for Mr. Box? Hearing none, if the petitioner is in the audience, if you could come forward to the chair here. Same procedure. Feel free to pull another chair out if you need them. State your name and address for the record and give any comments you might have.
Good evening, John Rose, 1324 Greenleaf, Rochester, Michigan. And I'm here representing my customers who own the Waldenberg Bar that you have heard about, and the request to basically put the same sign that they've had out there for over 50 years, basically just on each elevation, side elevation of the building.
Right. Appreciate it. Any questions from the board?
One quick question.
Go ahead, Mr. DeCoster.
Option D here at the bottom picture. In driving by the property recently, there are some pine trees that are somewhat blocking that view. Is that sign will be constructed there? You're comfortable with that? I mean, I'm assuming if we allow this variance, would they have to keep that sign at? Or is it just so they can put it on the side of the building? Because like I said, that is blocked a little bit.
Yeah. Would they have to keep the tree there?
No. Could they move that anywhere along that side elevation, or does it have to be where we're showing it here?
They could move it anywhere. This is just approving it to be on the side of the building. That's just where they're proposing it.
For proper visibility, though, when you're really coming, it's really the proper place to put it, just so that, again, these folks are losing their sign that they've had for over 50 years due to the expansion of the road and the roundabout being put in. So it just seems right to be able to kind of duplicate that same exposure to promote their business.
I think Mr. DeCoster's point, just to clarify, was to make sure that if we approved it, that it was not locking you into a specific location that would not be desirable later when you went to install it.
Understood.
I think was what he was
Understood.
checking. If I'm speaking for you.
Yeah. I guess one more question is, and I don't know if we can answer this yet, are there approved plans for the expansion of Romeo Plank yet?
The county is still working on that. They're working through their requirements with the state of Michigan and the federal government. So I know that they're actively working on that. We're working with them.
And the only reason I ask is because we may approve a sign exception here based on the assumption that this roundabout will go in. Is staff comfortable with doing that?
Yeah, whether this is a roundabout or a traditional intersection, that part of the roadway is going to be widened. Okay. That sign is going to go either way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, without objection, I will open up to the public. We have 2 members of the public left. Anybody want to speak on this item? Seeing none, without objection, I'm going to close the public portion back up and bring it back to the board for any comments or questions.
For motions?
Yeah, I was thinking about making a comment, but I'm actually not. I'm thinking, and we're just going to keep moving. Any motions?
I would make a motion to approve this variance as requested based on the fact that they are going to widen the road and they still have to have a sign of some sort on this establishment.
All right, to our legal counsel, well, let me take a second first. Is there support on that?
I support.
Support Ms. Faustick. For a sign exception, is that motion okay? Do we have to add it to it at all?
Yes, we're supposed to note the specific findings of fact under those factors. As Josh mentioned, it's not a practical difficulty analysis. It's does the request meet those factors? So the motion should address the factors.
Would a citing of practical difficulty kind of trump any of these aesthetics?
No, that's
No.
a different standard that doesn't apply to this request. So could
I would
acknowledge
say-
all of them collectively, but make it as a reference to the standards.
My motion then would be, I'd like to amend it to say it would be based on visibility.
And if I could, maybe something to the effect of meeting the spirit of the ordinance and allowing for proper visibility for the sign ordinance.
Yeah.
What Aaron said.
Based on the amended motion, I support.
Are you clear with that, Josh? Do we leave enough?
We'll get that ironed out.
Okay. All right. Motion by Mr. DeBruin, support by Ms. Faustick. Mr. DeBruin, actually, I should just check. Any discussion on that? Josh and Jim, you both good with that? You're good with it? Good. Okay. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoster?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Mazzara?
Yes.
Ms. Faustick is it?
Faustick.
Faustick, okay.
Close enough. Yes.
I still don't pronounce it right, so.
Well, you did it different than I did. Just wanna-
All right. That would have been 5-0?
Yes.
All right. Very good. That sign exception is approved. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for coming in. It's a very
Thank you
awkward
very
way of
much.
saying-
Appreciate your time.
Second time this evening I've said gentleman and lady. I'm going to figure out a different way to say that.
What are you doing with the old sign? That's a hot item.
Also, just word to the wise, next time let the easy ones go first.
Have a good evening.
Good luck to you.
All right, so that takes us on to item 9, which is public comments. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on non-agenda items this evening? Seeing none, I'm going to move us on to ZBA member comments. Any member comments this evening? Hearing none, I will move us on to the planning director comments. Mr. Box, anything for you this evening?
Other than to mention that there will be a meeting, obviously, in October, because we tabled a couple things, but there are some other items that will be on that as well.
Okay. Mr. Van Tifflin, anything from you?
I have nothing to add.
All right, sounds good. Anything for you, Jeff?
No comment.
Okay, fair enough. All right, that will move us on to item 13, adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. DeBruin. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Mazzara to adjourn at 7:37. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. That motion carries, and we stand adjourned.